The religious battles of the Crusades, faith, war, and power. In the year 1095, a speech changed the course of history. A call echoed across medieval Europe, a call for war in the name of faith. Thousands of knights, peasants, and kings took up the cross, believing they were fighting for God. This was the beginning of one of the most intense religious conflicts the world had ever seen. The Crusades. For nearly 2 centuries, armies from Christian Europe marched toward the Holy Land to battle Muslim forces for control of sacred cities, especially Jerusalem. But these wars were not only about religion. They were about power, land, and survival. The story begins with the powerful Byzantine Empire. For centuries, it had stood as a barrier between Europe and the expanding Muslim empires. But in 1071, the Byzantine army suffered a devastating defeat at the Crusades against the Seljuk Turks. Large parts of Anatolia fell into Muslim control. Desperate for help, the Byzantine emperor turned to Western Europe. In 1095, Pope Urban delivered a fiery speech He called on Christians to take up arms and reclaim the Holy Land. His message was simple and powerful. Fight for God, and your sins will be forgiven. The response was overwhelming. Tens of thousands of people began a long and dangerous journey toward Jerusalem. This movement became known as the Knights, wearing crosses on their armor, marched across Europe and the Middle East. After years of brutal fighting, the Crusaders finally reached Jerusalem. In 1099, they stormed the city. The siege ended in a violent victory. Jerusalem fell to the Crusaders, and a Christian kingdom was established in the Holy Land. But this victory would only ignite more wars. For decades, Muslim forces were divided, but eventually, powerful leaders began to unite them. One of the most famous was a brilliant military commander and ruler of Egypt and Syria. Saladin sought to reclaim Jerusalem. In 1187, his army faced the Crusader forces in a decisive battle. The clash happened at Saladin's forces surrounded the Crusader army under the scorching desert sun. The Crusader army collapsed. Soon after, Jerusalem returned to Muslim control. This victory shocked Europe. The fall of Jerusalem triggered another massive war. European kings united. Among them was the legendary English king. Richard fought several battles against Saladin. Both men became famous for their courage and strategy. Yet despite fierce fighting, Jerusalem remained under Muslim control. Eventually, Richard and Saladin agreed to a truce. Christian pilgrims could visit the Holy City, but the Crusaders would not rule it. The Crusades continued for nearly 200 years. There were many more campaigns, victories, and defeats. But in the end, European Crusaders failed to permanently control the Holy Land. Yet, the impact of the Crusades was enormous. They reshaped trade routes, strengthened some kingdoms, and weakened others. They deepened religious tensions between Christians and Muslims, tensions that would echo through history. Today, the Crusades remain one of the most powerful examples of how religion, politics, and ambition can collide. The Crusades were not just battles over land. They were battles over belief. And they remind us that history's most powerful wars are often fought not only with swords, but with faith.